You know that moment when someone asks, "So what do you do?" and you already feel your energy drop. Not because you're rude or you hate people, but because something in your brain just checked out. Now fast forward to 2 a.m. You're sitting with one person. The room is quiet. And somehow you're talking about fear, purpose, childhood, death, meaning, and the hours just disappear. If that sounds like you, this video isn't about personality quirks. It's about how your mind is wired differently, because people who hate small talk but crave deep conversation aren't being dramatic. They're responding to the world in a fundamentally different psychological way. And science backs this up. So let's start with the obvious question. Why does small talk feel so draining, while deep conversation feels energizing? Here's what's happening in your brain. Small talk operates on low emotional bandwidth. It's predictable, scripted, socially safe. Your brain doesn't need to engage to survive it. So for certain minds, it feels pointless. But deep conversation is something different. That activates meaning-based processing. When you talk about beliefs, fears, identity, or inner conflict, your brain releases dopamine not from novelty, but from connection and coherence. You're not exchanging words, you're exchanging internal maps of reality. For people like you, that's the reward. Small talk feels fake. Not because it is, but because of how you process authenticity. People who avoid small talk often score higher in trait authenticity sensitivity, meaning your brain is unusually good at detecting emotional mismatch. When someone says, "Yeah, I'm good," but their body says otherwise, you feel it. Small talk requires a kind of emotional suspension. Everyone agrees not to go too deep. Your mind doesn't like that contract. Deep conversation removes the mask. No pretending, no performance, just signal. There's also a stimulation mismatch happening. Small talk is actually high stimulation, low reward. You have to monitor social cues, maintain eye contact, respond quickly, perform politeness, suppress honesty. All for information you don't need. That's exhausting. Deep conversation is the opposite. Low stimulation, high reward. Fewer people, slower pace. Long pauses are allowed. Silence isn't awkward, it's useful. For reflective minds, this is where the nervous system finally relaxes. Here's something most people miss. People who love deep conversations aren't antisocial. They're selectively social. You don't want more conversations, you want fewer, deeper ones. This links to a psychological concept called depth orientation, the tendency to seek meaning over frequency. You don't feel fulfilled by being around many people. You feel fulfilled by being fully present with one. That's not avoidance, that's precision. Why surface-level conversation feels emotionally unsafe? This sounds backwards, but it's true. For deep processors, small talk can feel riskier than vulnerability. But why? Because ambiguity creates anxiety. When conversations stay shallow, you're forced to guess, like, what does this person really think? Are they sincere? Are we connecting, or just filling space? Deep conversation removes uncertainty. Once someone talks about what matters to them, their values become visible. And your brain prefers clarity over comfort. There's also a time perception shift. People who love deep conversation experience temporal compression during meaningful dialogue. Time collapses. 30 minutes of small talk feels endless. 3 hours of deep conversation feels like 10 minutes. That's because meaning anchors attention. Your brain stops tracking time and starts tracking relevance. But there is a misunderstanding. Loving deep conversations doesn't mean you think you're smarter than others. It means your brain doesn't get rewarded by surface-level exchange. You're not bored because you're arrogant. You're bored because your mind is underfed. Depth isn't about intellect, it's about psychological nourishment. But why you often feel out of place socially? This is because modern culture rewards speed, visibility, positivity, constant engagement. Deep conversation is slow, quiet, uncomfortable, but honest. So people like you often grow up thinking something is wrong with them. It isn't. You're built for fewer connections, but stronger ones. Here's the core truth. People who hate small talk but love deep conversation aren't avoiding life. They're trying to touch it. They want to understand, not just participate. They want resonance, not noise. And in a world optimized for constant chatter, that kind of mind can feel lonely, but it's also powerful. Because depth is where identity forms, insight emerges, healing happens. So if this sounds like you, it means you value meaning over momentum. You don't confuse presence with connection. You're comfortable with silence. You'd rather be real than likable. And that's not a flaw. That's psychological clarity. You don't hate people. You hate wasting emotional bandwidth. And once you understand that, you stop trying to force yourself into conversations that were never meant for you. You wait, and when the depth appears, you dive. If this resonated, stay with the channel. The next video goes even deeper into why some minds reject surface-level living entirely. You're not difficult, you're just tuned differently.